At Benromach, we embrace traditional distilling techniques which have been at the heart of our family for over 4 generations, whose whisky roots reach all the way back to 1898. And while the world has changed a lot in the past 120 plus years, here at Benromach we take pride in tradition and recognise that newer is not always better. It's why we still handcraft each bottle of spirit that leaves our distillery, using many of the same processes and even much of the same equipment that we used here way back in the beginning. You see, legally, single malt is made with just 4 ingredients: malted barley, yeast, water, and oak. All of these are of paramount importance, but it overlooks 2 other key ingredients whose impact is harder to measure: time and the human touch, the people who make the spirit. These 2 are closely tied because it's not just the time in the wood that matters. It's the time it takes to master the craft, to learn how to produce, measure, and blend a spirit that stands the test of time. The alchemy of distillation is indeed science, but the whisky making is an art that requires a skilled hand. It is an art we believe cannot be automated, and one for which we at Benromach accept no shortcuts. That is why we exclusively use first fill casks. That is why we select and note each cask by hand. It's why we use a longer fermentation, and it's why we settle our wash stills and make our cuts on the spirit still by hand.
My name is Richard Urquhart. I'm a member of the 4th generation of the Urquhart family. My family has been in the whisky industry now for over 127 years. We started off by being a whisky blender and broker, but we had one passion: to focus on single malt Scotch whisky. My great-grandfather, John Urquhart, joined a company called Gordon and MacPhail, which was founded by 2 gentlemen, James Gordon and John MacPhail, back in 1895. And my family has been in the whisky industry ever since then.
At Benromach, we're also quite unique in Speyside these days, in that we lightly peat our barley before distillation. That may seem to go against expectation for this part of Scotland, but it's actually very much in keeping with tradition. Back in the 19th century, distillers used peat across Scotland, and being composed of local flora, peat varies greatly from region to region. Ours is more delicate and gently incorporated to add complexity, rather than being the presiding note.
The peat that we use is Scottish peat, and it gives a sort of lovely richness, a lovely earthiness to the whole character of the whisky. But we chose to sort of go back a few decades and produce this old style of peated malt, so they complement each other very, very well. We chose to do lightly peated. That is just enough. It's just the right level for us, that we get that lovely, elegant smokiness coming through.
Being a small family-owned distillery, we have the ability to try different experiments. But the organic was one that we first came up with the concept. I believe it was my uncle back in 1999. So we sourced organic oak from a forest in Missouri in the US. We shipped that wood back to Speyside and had brand new casks made. So these are virgin American oak casks. This also helped us release the whisky a bit younger. Being virgin oak, we couldn't mature for the same length of time. So we got this really different flavour profile. So the organic is unpeated. We get this really nice richness coming through from that American oak, toffee, vanilla and banana. And it's just a little bit different to what we do with the rest of our Scotch whiskies.
To make our mash, we combine the malt with water from the Chapelton Springs, sourced from a well in the Romach Hills, just a couple of miles from the distillery. This same water source has supplied the Benromach distillery for 120 years. One of the keys to our unique mash is the spring's naturally soft water, which helps draw the flavours out of our grains.
Scottish soft water is one of the natural ingredients that we have. You need that good soft spring water for the mashing process, so our fermentation is anywhere between 3 and 5 days. That allows that richness to come through. We use 2 types of yeast. We use a traditional distiller's yeast, and we've always used brewing yeast or brewer's yeast as well, and we feel as if we just get that extra complexity using the distiller's and brewer's yeast. The approach we have at Benromach, it's almost like a jigsaw puzzle. Every part of it has to sit in place to get that end character.
At Benromach, we have 2 bespoke copper pot stills. Our wash is twice distilled before our distillers make cuts by hand, using their years of experience to know the precise points at which to capture the hearts of the run.
So Benromach is a handcrafted distillery. Everything that we do here is done by hand. The skill of our distillers, Keith and the rest of the team here, turn every valve, and they very much make whisky the way it was made in Speyside. We're going back to how it tasted 50 or 60 years ago. And this is where it links into our family history. We know how Speyside whisky tasted because we have a library of casks and samples that go back to the 1930s and 1940s. And we've gone back into that library and chosen to create a whisky that is not common in Speyside today, but would have been a type of whisky you would have been drinking in Speyside 50, 60 years ago.
The spirit is then transferred into first fill casks exclusively. These casks have been meticulously selected from all over the world, having previously aged bourbon or fine sherry. Selecting only first fill casks helps maintain quality and ensure the activity we will get from these casks. The work doesn't end once the liquid goes into the cask, however. This is when the decades-long process of manually checking, sampling, and identifying the perfect time to bottle begins.
Art and science, they kind of come together in a set. I love the art part, the black art of making whisky. We slow the maturation down in these lovely dunnage warehouses. The warehouses were very well ventilated, so you got lovely airflow, but the temperature was always very cool, and that just allowed the cask to kind of sleep a bit slower. It's a great environment for maturing malt whisky, and that's why Benromach is matured in traditional Scottish dunnage warehouses.
At Benromach, we are building for the modern world while honouring the traditions that have crafted our legacy. We are committed to a sustainable production because sometimes it turns out the best ways forward is to learn from the past.